saying he's going to Myrtle Beach. So somebody had worked he was going to his house, supposed to have 4 hours. He should, by rushing kid.
Looking so.
Good morning. How are you?
How you doing?
Well, good to see you. Good to see you.
Hey, Coach. Hey, what's up, Cole? We got a subcommittee meeting today? No, not in finance.
Oh, you changed it, huh? It was good, though. It was a good recommendation.
Yeah. Some good spots down. Especially the little.
Oh, yeah, I was talking about that rest.
I talked
Yeah, I
to Jamie
enjoyed
Jeremy
that.
about him afterwards, because I heard him somewhere else.
Yeah,
I want to tell my man, he needs to put some more shrimp
John
on
Barrow was
that.
sitting next to me. So
You
we
know,
were all
that
talking. I
country.
said,
Oh, yeah, they count that shrimp out.
Yeah.
We'll wait till Madam Clerk.
Is Lonnie not here?
Okay. Madam Clerk, you tell me when you're ready, sister. What's that? Okay.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am, sure will.
I'm going to tell you in advance, I'm not sure where Mr. Wimberly is, but I know Mr. Powell is out of town today. Not able to be here.
Ms. Bakos? Present. Mr. Bryant?
Present.
Mr. Coleman?
Present.
Mr. Francis?
France, yes, President.
Thank you. Mr. Fouché? Mr. Pearson? Mr. Powell? Is Mr. Powell's out? Mr. Robinson? Ms. Robinson, I'm sorry. Ms. Wilhelmi? Mr. Wimberly? Yes, all accounted. Mr. Powell out.
Very good. If we would, we don't have Mr.
Mr. Lewis, I'm sorry. Okay.
If we could, let's rise to do our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Because Mr. Bryant is the chair now, only Pearson.
All right, can we welcome Ms. Gayla Kesey from the League of Women Voters to the podium for comments?
Good morning,
Morning.
Madam Chair, members of the Charter Review Committee. My name is Gayla Kesey, and I'm co-president of the League of Women Voters of the CSRA. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk to you today. From the beginning of this process, the League of Women Voters has raised concerns that the committee's work feels haphazard, chaotic at times, and lacking in focus. In our first public statements, we urged the committee to establish clear priorities, and in our email, we suggested both a set of priorities and phases that would help focus. And we also reiterated Moses Todd's suggestion for a workshop format that would be followed by public comment meeting. Unfortunately, we still have concerns, and recommendations remain just as relevant today. This brings me to today's CRC meeting. According to the agenda, which still was not posted when I looked last, the committee will be considering a motion to adopt generalized edits of the charter. Yesterday, the League requested access to those edits so the public could understand what you were voting on. As of this morning, we had not received a response. Without that information, members of the public cannot prepare informed comments, and it is difficult to feel confident in a process where decisions are being made without clear communication or opportunity for review. This lack of focus and sequencing is not confined to the full committee. It is showing up in the subcommittees as well. The Finance Committee, which was originally scheduled for today but has now been canceled, illustrates the problem. At its first meeting, discussion jumped between charter-level issues and ordinance-level matters. At its most recent session, it focused on budgets and audits. While those may be important, they're premature. Finance cannot meaningfully design oversight mechanisms until the form of government committee resolves the fundamental questions of power and authority, whether Augusta will operate under a city manager or city administrator, what authority rests with the mayor versus the commission, and how accountability will be structured. This is why the form of government subcommittee work is so critical. Yet, instead of focusing squarely on one or two core issues, today's agenda attempts to cover a gamut of unrelated topics: city manager versus administrator, removal procedures, super districts, whistleblower protections, the frequency of charter review.
10 seconds, Ms. Kesey.
Okay, and partisan versus nonpartisan elections. Some of these items, such as the partisan election questions, are irrelevant because state law already mandates that consolidated governments must have nonpartisan elections.
Ms. Kesey, I'm sorry, but the time is up.
That's fine, okay? We urge you to bring focus.
Also, will you mention that you've handed out, or has it been handed out? Okay, so
That was part of the
Ms.
next
Kesey has
paragraph.
brought a handout that will be useful to all of us, and if you don't have it, please let us know because she's got extra copies that have been passed down the line. All right, can we please call Mr. Brian Green? Mr. Green not here?
Not here.
Okay. All right, then can we call Mr. Todd? Mr. Todd, if you can hold on just 1 second so we can be accurate. So, Ms. Gala, did we go down the line passing those out or no? Okay, and I'm missing mine, but let's not, and I'll need an extra one for Mr. Powell too. Thank you. All right. Mr. Todd,
Yes.
you need a little help with getting that microphone down to you there.
I think it's down, I would, well, it may, can everybody hear me? Is it picking up good? Yes. Okay. Okay. Madam Chairman and members of the Charter Review Committee, I started talking to you, I guess, first meeting with objective and sometime constructive criticism, but objective recommendations on what would, in the end, give us a good product. And I appreciate, you're at least listening to the public in the sense of, we raised concerns about, what form of government was had the least malfeasance. And I understand we have a speaker speaking on that today. And I'm interested to hear what the speaker, the experts have to say. That's why I'm here in a wheelchair with suffering about of the gout. So I'm going to make it as short as I can. I agree with the League of Women Voters on the agenda, and there's no way for me to comment on the subject matter if I don't know the subject matter. Now, I know that, some individuals will send out the agenda, possibly, the Augusta media, and for the individuals that's following this process, it seems to me that it would be easy for those individuals to be listed on that email list with the agenda going out if IT is not working for us. I appreciate the modification on how we sign up to speak. I think the chairman's or the committee's suggestion that we set up a board and we go there to IT and do it versus emailing the clerk's office and the chairman, where sometime emails, may be down or not noticed. But if it's on the board, then it's there. I think that you have a lot of work to do. You have serious work to do. I am concerned that at a town hall meeting that I heard at least from one member or possibly more, that the resolution that created this committee, that it hadn't been shared with 100% of the committee. I think that's a failure by someone, and I don't know whether it's in the documents that's posted or not. I will stay engaged no matter what to make sure that we have a good product, and hopefully you guys will ungag me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Todd, I'm going to go ahead and claim credit for that. Mr. Kendrick asked the question I think you're referring to Monday night, and he asked me very frankly, have you read this? And I answered him, no, I had not. But let me clarify this. It is in this book here, so the entire committee has had access to that document. I can guarantee you I've read 3,500, 4,000 pages in the last 4 months of very hard things. So while you're zeroed in on 1 page or 2 pages, we haven't had that luxury. So I have read it. I just don't zero in on the same points. And so that's the gospel truth. That's just in full disclosure. The committee has had access to that document. Again, they're reading a lot of material too, and not to excuse it, it's just to say that what we're assigning importance to is not how this is not a process, because that's out of our hands. What we are assigning process to is doing enough thorough homework, working with Carl Vinson to inform our decisions. So that's no excuses, just the way it is. All right, let's go on to the next part.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Green is here.
Very good. Well, we're more than happy to welcome you. Mr. Green, would you like to come?
Mercy, I just had a comment real quick.
You can, while he's coming to the podium, that'd be great. Here, I'm sorry, I didn't even see that. Go right ahead.
You have to call my name.
I'm sorry, Ms. Backus.
Mr. Todd, I just want to assure you that the resolution is on the website, and actually when we're in the meetings, so I don't have to carry around the big book, that's where I access it. So when questions do come up, I go straight to that website, and it's under documents.
Welcome, Mr. Green. We got 3 minutes, so will you tell me when you're ready to start?
Ready. Thanks for the adjustment and allowing me to speak. Please excuse my tardiness. I had a revelation yesterday about this process here, and I said to myself, didn't we vote to give the mayor voting power? That's where I'm at. So I've been to 4 meetings right now. And I've been one of the people sitting there looking at y'all going, get ready. And you throw my little input at you. But we've jumped over that. So the 4th, y'all had about 13 meetings, correct? Roughly. Okay, so the 400 or 500 people that attend these meetings, none of them voted to give the mayor power. So we're looking at everybody that's against. I doubt that very seriously. And I'm here kind of to say, I'm going to change that with me. The next meeting I'm able to come to, I'm going to say it. Somebody needs to. We got to start identifying the elephant in the room. And the people need to realize when you voted to give the mayor a vote, which I did not. I did not vote in favor of consolidation. Did not vote to give the mayor a vote, and I'm very consistent with my vote. I mentioned that to the mayor. I said, I don't think this is a good process and way to do that. So not that it mattered that much. I just wanted him to know that, for me. But We skipped over the fact that people, the citizens of Richmond County voted to give the mayor voting power. So we're talking about district, should there be 6 districts? I don't care personally if we had 8 districts, 6, 7, it doesn't matter. You need people working together. And you saw on my title, it says more about leadership and less about that other stuff. And I believe that to this day. But, you have your elephant, the commission have their elephant in the room. The commissioners need to be the one catching the stuff you all are catching. I'm gonna tell you straight up, you all just appointed to a job. I hope they will compensate you. I know some of you on this board. I know that for the most part, you're probably not up here for financial, whatever the case is, like that. But I wish they would compensate you all for your time. We've got to grow up in this county here. And I will say this, though. I do believe we have to have a balance of power. If the mayor's going to continue to have a vote, this mayor has about a non-official, of course, this is my opinion, a 7-vote favor. Let's make it an 8-vote situation where you have to have 8 commissioners and not just simply you can outvote 4 commissioners. It'll empower people. Remember, those commissioners that against anything in particular at any time represent thousands of people in their district. I think it'll give a better balance of power. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Stop. I gotta turn this off. All right. Thanks for coming. I'm glad you were able to make those comments. Appreciate you making the effort, because I know it's hard to find parking spots out there, trains and everything else. Sir, we got I think Mr. Rod was next.
Okay.
Mr. Pearson.
All right, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I have a question, if you don't mind, for the attorney. Okay. Mr. Plunkett, we have someone on the commission, on the CRC committee, that's now, my understanding, has entered the race for one of the districts. Okay?
District 4, yes, sir.
District 4. And I find that to be a conflict of interest if that person remains on this committee. In this scenario, and this person can push their agenda, can influence others, can vote on things that could possibly cushion their position if they were to be victorious in that race. So that's my immediate concern. I wanted you to address that. I find it to be unethical for the person to remain on this committee. Thank you.
Mr. Pearson, I don't think that the rules prohibit Mr. Wembley from serving. He is not an elected official. He is not a former elected official. It would be within his, if he feels it's inappropriate to serve, then he could certainly resign, but I don't think that it's a prohibition. Unlike Ms. Barnhill Turnley, she was appointed to a position, therefore, even though she wasn't elected, she is in an official capacity. So I think that's the distinction there. Whether or not Mr. Wembley wants to continue to serve or not. And I would also say to your question about influencing things, I think that, certainly commissioners either actively serving or formerly serving, I mean, no offense, hopefully Mr. Todd doesn't think I'm calling him out. In this regard, he's a former commissioner, and I think he's influenced some of y'all's debate as well. So I don't think that while he may have a vote, Mr. Wembley would have a vote with y'all's deliberations, it would still, I don't think he's prohibited from serving, the short answer.
No comment.
Mr. France.
Excuse me.
Was Ms. Sheffy next? Ms. Sheffy Robinson.
I was going to say something in reference to Mr. Green, but
I'll speak in reference to this other thing. We have to understand that the charter review process is essentially us creating a set of bylaws for the city, a set of rules with which the city is governed. That should not necessarily be political in process, because it's a set of rules, and the rules should apply no matter what the politics look like. And I think this body spends so much time focused on the politics that we don't have time to set the rules, because half the time we barely follow the rules we created for ourselves. So as much as we want to do this mudslinging and things up here, and can we focus on the rules and the actual job that we have been appointed to do, and stop trying to be pseudo commissioners calling folks out? We are literally here to create the bylaws for this city. That's it. All of the other stuff, it's time consuming, it's a waste of our time, it's a waste of the people's time. We aren't paid to be here. When I go and charge a client, I charge them $300 an hour, but I'm here for free. So this could be money for me and for many other people. But we're supposed to be here to do a very important role, which I don't think we do, because we spend too much time focused on the politics. Can we please get back to the actual jobs we were appointed up here to do?
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Mr. France.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Did Mr. Green leave the room, actually? Sir, could you come back 1 second, if you would? Maybe, could you come back to the mic for 1 second, sir, please? Don't mind. Thank you, sir. My question to you, you made a comment about we giving the mayor the right to vote. Could you follow up? What point are you driving when you ask that question? I'm trying to figure out your reasoning for the question, because that's a true statement that the vote, it was given to the mayor. So what is your point by the vote for the mayor, sir?
I appreciate your question. I believe when we voted to give the mayor an extended vote, we essentially or incidentally changed the charter, because the mayor's seat is the most central seat of consolidation. It's like everything hovers around that. That's kind of where I'm coming from. And as I said before, I don't necessarily get caught up with right now. I think about down the road. 10, 15 years down the road. And I'm looking for us to have balance. And that's what consolidation was designed to do, was keep a balance. You know, the 5 and 5 and the mayor, votes to break that tie. But when now that we've exceeded that, gone beyond that, I just can't see success or whatever that without us changing the charter. Or, like I said, getting a balance. And that's the key word. I hope I'm kind of answering your question a little better. If we can bring balance to it. So this mayor or any mayor, nothing personal against Mayor Garnett, no mayor can get a coalition. Now you got to, if you want that vote, you got to convince 8 commissioners, not just 5 or 6. Because, sir, even if you have 5, if I was mayor and there was a 5-5 vote, I will hold up the process and say, I want to know more about why you all, that's 5 commissioners against something. I would be concerned about that personally. And I would put a vote off myself if the powers allowed me to, so I could find an endeavor into what their problem was with a particular vote. That's a lot of people that they're representing. I wouldn't just be satisfied just to outvote them, in other words. And I think we need to have some balance here. And I just think this is kind of an unexpected coincidence or whatever. The fact when they voted to say yes, and I hear all these people at these meetings, we did it. We had the pit bull hanging off a tree, talking about how tough he is. As soon as he escaped the yard, he went and bit somebody, and we're surprised. We're surprised on something that we created. And that's the problem. This community better wake up. Y'all need to bring a mirror next time at your meeting, because I'm the type of person, I just speak it. I don't care about political sides or what's, I could care less. And I just think it needs to be right with you all. That's why I came here, excuse me, in person today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Robinson.
Now I can get back to what I was originally going to say. The thing we have to be conscious of in this, when we did give the mayor a vote, is we essentially null and voided the executive branch of government we had existing, which now makes the mayor a part of the commission. And you're right, it does teeter things quite a bit. The other piece of that is I don't know that most people were thinking, let's give the mayor a vote so much as they were, let's give Garnett Johnson a vote. And that's very different because Garnett Johnson isn't always going to be the mayor. Would that have worked under another mayor? Don't know. But we do have to factor that in when we're making decisions as this body, because it's not we're not making this charter change for the current government. This charter change is for the next 30 governments. So we have to factor in all pieces of the puzzle. None of the people who are currently sitting may be sitting in the next year, 2 years. So what does government look like for us then? So I appreciate your comments, because we have to get back to what is the balance of power regardless of who's in office? Because what has been accomplished with our current elected officials may not be with a new set of officials. How do we make sure the city doesn't bankrupt itself or there's malfeasance? Because that's a great concern. Are we operating ethically? All of these things are concerns. So I appreciate your comments, and I thank you for kind of reiterating that, because we have to get back to this isn't just about who is currently elected, it's about who is to come later. Thank you.
All right, at this, oh, okay, we got Mr. Wimberly.
Madam Chair, I'd like to call a young lady from the League of Government back up. I have a couple of questions.
Mr. Wimberly, no.
You just
I
allowed.
I would like you to take that up with her after this. We're in the middle of the meeting. We've got a gal on hold that's going to be speaking to
Okay,
this body.
so there's an uneven procedure.
No, sir.
being applied
The chair
here.
determines who. You can't just call her directly.
And I asked you.
And I'm going to tell you, we have a speaker that's waiting on us to get to her portion of the program today. And if it's possible, we can either defer this to later in the meeting, if you'd like, or after the meeting.
So I got to make sure this is for the record now. You just allowed a speaker to sit down. Actually, he came in late. You allowed him to speak, and then you allowed him to be recalled.
Okay.
And I asked the same thing, and I cannot get a recall.
I'm looking at the phone at the clock here.
Should have been looking at it at the same time.
Order, sir.
Then.
Please, decorum and order, please. Let's move on to Carl Vinson, because we do have to wait. We've got people waiting on us at this point. This has to do with the generalized audits that were presented at the last meeting. And does anybody have any questions? Otherwise, we can take a motion and move through that agenda item. If not, can we entertain a motion to accept the generalized edits to the charter?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. So Miss Robinson.
Can you remind us what the edits we're talking about specifically?
Sure. Ms. Brill.
Give me a moment, I have to pull them up.
Okay.
Okay. I'm just looking up to see what they were specifically. Oh, here we go, sorry. So, let's see, one was on unification of county and city, creation of unified government name, so it's basically just the standardized language setting forth when the Augusta was created, under what laws, and then also it's a new political entity because it's consolidated. It's just general language and for that and what the name of it will be. It's basically your incorporation language. The other language was, let me see right here. I have the correct stuff here. The status of the consolidated government as municipal, corporation, and county. Just the general powers and duties that the consolidated government has. This is all very general. It's with every county, every municipality. And let me see though what the last was. And there were, I think this is this the correct one? I apologize.
My recollection was it was about a third of a page worth of generalized
So
edits.
basically, here we go. And I apologize for that. It just essentially when the commission passes their ordinances, it basically says it should begin with the Commission of Augusta, Georgia, hereby ordains, and that all their ordinances should be by resolution. When the regular meetings will be held at such times and places as prescribed by ordinance. Things that basically go in the ordinance, but it's generally stated in the charter. Personnel that employees serve at will and may be removed from office at any time unless otherwise provided by ordinance. And generally, a lot of times in ordinances, they have a merit system. So, but Georgia is an at-will state. When the fiscal year is, so it states that the fiscal year is set by ordinance, and the fiscal year shall constitute the budget year and the year for financial accounting and reporting of each and every office, department, agency, and activity of the consolidated government, unless otherwise provided by state or federal law. That the commission by ordinance shall prescribe procedures for a system of centralized purchasing for the consolidated government. And that the commission shall create by ordinance such boards, commissions, and authorities to fulfill any investigative, quasi-judicial, or quasi-legislative function the commission deems necessary, and shall by ordinance establish the composition, period of existence, and duties and powers thereof. And as we've discussed previously, basically it sets out the general framework, and then in the ordinances you can set out how many people are going to be on it, the attendance that's required, everything else that is required in general. Does that answer your question, or is there? Okay. I apologize for not having that up sooner.
No worries. Any other comments before we call for the vote? Let's vote. So I'm 3, Clint is 5, Rod is 11. So District 7 is Lee Powell, and he's not here. So,
Mr. Bryant? Yes. You can vote, sir.
so it's just Marcy and Rod then, and Wilhelmie votes yes.
Yes.
Mr. Pearson votes
Are
yes.
you voting? Have you voted? Vote.
I can vote
no,
now?
call. Yeah, we'll roll call.
Okay.
We'll roll call you and
Mr.
Mr. Pearson.
Got it. So
Okay.
we vote yes.
You vote, both of you?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. All
That
right.
motion carries, it's unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Can Dr. Facer please come to report on the results of the analysis of the surveys received?
Sure, and Madam Chair, if I can make a possible change in the order, if it would be possible to have Dr. Nelson do her presentation now. She's been on hold, and I think there are a number of people who would rather listen to her to start with than me, so if that's all right.
Absolutely, please do so.
Perfect. And IT is going to bring her in on Zoom. Dr. Kim Nelson is the leading expert in the U.S. on local government corruption. And she has a new book that she's recently published, and we look forward to hearing from her. So I believe they're bringing her on right now.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, Kim, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. Can you see my slides as well?
Not yet.
Okay.
So they're working on that right now. So. Perfect. We see your slides. Sorry about that, Kim. So. All right, go ahead, Kim.
Dr. Facer, if we could, is it possible to request her slide deck as well to be put on them? Okay.
There she is.
I am talking.
We can hear you now.
Okay, great. Good morning. Thank you for inviting me to speak today. I am Kim Nelson. I'm a distinguished professor at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and director of the Center for Public Leadership and Governance there. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about my research in municipal corruption. It's been a long-term set of research projects that I've done with my colleague Whitney Afonso. And so what I plan to do is just briefly go over the results of the research and then speak to you about sort of what the conclusions tell us about what we can recommend to municipal governments about corruption prevention. And then I can take some questions. So the research about municipal corruption, the reason we studied it was because really there hasn't been any conclusive research on municipal corruption in the United States. At the very beginning of city government in the United States, there was this idea that there needed to be an antidote to machine politics and corruption in the early 1900s, and that's where the council manager form was born. But no one ever tested to see whether the council manager form actually resulted in any sorts of changes in corruption risk. And so that was what we tried to figure out. And we looked at multiple factors. This research is different because the sample is very big. It has every municipality in the United States with populations of 10,000 and above, and the time frame is 30 years. And so it is quite a large data set. We also ran multiple models to try to disprove the hypothesis that form of government matters, and every analysis we did reconfirmed the findings that I'll share with you in a minute. Some of the factors we looked at are listed here. Our dependent variable was corruption convictions in the United States, and we eliminated anything related to policing, because that really has a different set, we believe it has a different set of causal factors than what we would see in the administration and elected officials of the local government. So we looked at all municipalities in the United States, again, with populations of 10,000 and above. And these are some of the variables that we tested against to see whether they made a difference. So we looked at form of government, mayor council versus council manager. We looked at poverty rate and unemployment and population, education, all kinds of demographics. We looked at the balance of job distribution, employment distribution in a community. So percent manufacturing employment versus percent service employment. And then we looked at various state variables related to monitoring that states do of local governments to see if that had any influence in whether there was greater risk of corruption. We used convictions rather than arrests or indictments because, you know, there's a chance that if someone's found not guilty, that they are actually not guilty. And so we did not, we waited until a decision was made. And at that point, that incident would be recorded in our data set. And so our findings across all of the models were very consistent. The council manager form was highly protective against corruption convictions. And it was the only causal relationship that we found, meaning that we can fairly convincingly say there appears to be a causal relationship between form of government and corruption risk. And depending on the model we ran, that risk was reduced by 37 to 70%. So it was a significantly lower risk. Also, we found that the only other consistently positive finding was that the lower the poverty rate in a community, the lower the risk of corruption. And so on the other side, you see higher poverty rate and the mayor council form associated with greater risk of corruption convictions. So basically in all three sets of the models that we ran, we found compelling evidence that not only does form of government impact the incidence of corruption, but that council manager form of government reduces the incidence. And so it did show that the council manager form is protected. So why does this make a difference? Well, we think there are three basic reasons. One is that the incentives are different for appointed managers than they are for elected officials, and the political process being ingrained in the mayor council system creates gaps and opportunities for people with bad motives to access people with power and try to get favorable sorts of decisions by the elected officials or by the local government. We also believe that the manager's incentives are to keep the job. They are highly responsive to what the elected officials want. And it's important that they perform. Part of that performance is to be honest. And so we think that the incentives there are in favor of behaving and not engaging in any kind of malfeasance. And then professional training, of course, a professionally trained manager understands internal controls. In theory, they should understand internal controls. They should understand other sorts of mechanisms that can be put in place to protect a government from corruption risk. And finally, there's actually what we call dual accountability in the council manager form that is not present in the mayor council form. So there is accountability through the voters who elect the elected officials, and those elected officials then appoint the manager and oversee the manager on a day-to-day basis. And so unlike in the mayor council form, where it is only the voters that can hold the CEO accountable, in the council manager form, both the voters and indirectly in the elected officials can hold that person accountable. So what does this lead us to conclude? So we took all the quantitative findings from our different studies, and then we looked at examples of corruption that occurred across the United States and municipal governments to try to sort of bring it all together and come up with a set of recommendations for what we think local governments should do. We do believe professional leadership matters, and so the council manager form should be on the table, in our opinion. You know, everyone should be trained in internal controls and what to look for. You know, and your manager, if you do go that route, should be a member of ICMA. The managers who are members of ICMA have to swear to adhere to a code of ethics, and their membership in that association hinges on their maintaining that code of ethics and that ethical behavior. Internal controls, of course, are essential, and to the degree that you can institutionalize those, it's really important. The annual audit is not sufficient. So you look through major corruption incidents in the United States, and very few of them, if any, are actually discovered through auditing. And so, and in fact, in the largest municipal corruption case in the United States history, the auditors were held liable for allowing it to occur, allowing the embezzlement to occur. And so, for 20 years in that community, it went undiscovered through the annual audit process. The second is trust is not internal control. We want to trust the people who work in local government. And I'm not saying that trust is a bad thing, but trust without supervision and transparency is not appropriate. You can trust, but verify, as Ronald Reagan would have said. And then again, internal controls minimize your risk. Segregation of duties in particular is very, very important. Oversight is essential. Again, when you have this high level of trust, what we see over and over again is that when there are problems, including in the council manager form, what has happened a lot of times is that the elected officials are either complicit with the administration or they have just decided they trust the person so much that they don't bother serving as a check. And of course, transparency is very important, not just that documents are available for the public to look at, but that documents are produced in such a way that it's easy for everyone to understand them. So if you make a document that has all the numbers in it, but it's written in such a way that you can't understand it unless you're a CPA, that's a problem. And so definitely considering how approachable your documents are to the public is also really, really important. Another recommendation is to consider your greatest areas of vulnerability when thinking about how to protect a municipality from corruption. Of course, most corruption incidents occur when private sector entities try to influence government policy in some way, contracting, awarding contracts or procurement, including public-private partnerships, zoning approval, variances, building permits, licenses, all of those are also highly vulnerable to types of corruption. And then finally, election-related corruption. There's a great deal in the country of incidents where elected officials are given campaign donations in exchange for a promise to, award some private sector entity with something that they want from the government. As far as ethics provisions go in the charter, one best practice that we recommend is an independent ethics board or an inspector general. The independent is the key part, which means in the charter, the ethics board would have to have a dedicated set of funding that cannot be removed by elected officials if they're under investigation. Which seems logical, but there are lots and lots of ethics boards out there whose funding can be pulled instantaneously, meaning their power goes away, and it can potentially occur when they're actually investigating some malfeasance on the part of the decision makers. And of course, the code of ethics, most states require this today, code of conducts, for both staff and elected officials, so it should cover the entire organization. Some places have two different ones because staff sort of may have different concerns. You may have different concerns about staff than what you have about elected officials, but certainly having these in place are important. The way you can enforce these mechanisms really varies from state to state. I do have a comment on there. When is a bribe and not a gratuity? There was a recent Supreme Court decision, the Snyder decision, where the Supreme Court said that if a payment was awarded to an elected official after the policy was passed, then it is a gratuity or a tip, not a bribe. And so we are recommending that local governments sort of tighten this up, because despite what the Supreme Court says, those of us who study ethics believe that it is inappropriate to reward a government official after they've received some sort of favorable policy decision. And so we do recommend that you consider that. And finally, really building a culture that supports ethical is very important. So consistent training above and beyond what states require is important. And also making sure leadership models the way. What we find is that having regulations in place is insufficient if the people at the top are not behaving in a way that models integrity. And so while this is impossible to codify, I realize if the organization is consistent throughout about how important it is to be transparent and honest and open, then that usually will permeate the entire organization. And so I know that's a very quick description of my research. I'm happy to take questions about this research or anything else you would like to talk about related to ethics. I also put some resources in the slides that would allow you to look at some, like the Model City Charter has some charter provisions around ethics that may be helpful, for example.
Very good. Wonderful presentation. Can Ms. Robinson, please?
One of my questions, and you may not have specific data on this, or and that's fine. I'm just curious. In the models that you looked at, as far as the ones where the corruption was most prominent, was there any data around whether the leadership had voting power or veto power with regard to their government?
No, we looked just at mayor council versus council manager.
Okay.
Now, across the country, and I can give you the specific numbers of what percentage had veto power, but the majority of mayors in mayor council governments across the country do have veto power. Most of them, voting power is about 50-50, I believe, but I'd have to look up the numbers. And it's usually to break a tie if they have voting power at all. And I wouldn't recommend that, by the way. Just, I'm an expert on form of government too. I think that the executive should be distinct from the council, from the legislative, if you're gonna have mayor, council, form of government.
Thank you.
Ms. Backus.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I have two questions. In your research, what role have you found is most commonly found to be corrupt? Like when you are, I don't know if my question is coming out the right way. Like is it normally a manager, a mayor, a commission? Is it procurement? Like which role is most commonly found to be corrupt?
So I didn't run analysis specifically on that. I have that in my data set. I will say that because it's mayor, council government, it's most, and just looking, I mean, I read all the cases. It's most likely an elected official who is accepting some sort of bribe or favor, like an addition onto their house or something from a contractor. Those are the types of things that we see the most, but it's almost always a private sector business person who wants something from the government and they approach elected officials.
Okay. And the second question, one thing that we're discussing in our form of government subcommittee, I think actually today, is whether or not we want a city administrator or manager, and then if that manager would report directly to the mayor only, and is the mayor going to be the one that's hiring and firing, or if it would work more like in a business where the CEO still has to report to the board. So in your experience, is there one that works more effectively and reduces the chances of corruption?
Yes, so what you described, if you have an administrator who is hired by the mayor and fired by the mayor and reports to the mayor, that's still mayor council government. It's mayor council of the CAO. And so it would be higher risk than council manager form that operates like a business. And I do want to say that it's possible for any local government to work well and any local government to go bad. It is just the fact that the council manager form offers more protections when bad people are in office. I think one of the commissioners earlier was saying, we're not just looking at who's in office now, we're looking at who's in office in the future. And the reality is that you don't know who's going to be in the office in the future. And if someone is elected who has bad intent, the mayor-council form has fewer protections against that person doing something that harms the local government.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. France.
Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning, Ms. Nelson. One quick question. You mentioned about the council manager form of government being a better form of government. Is that based, what population size did you sample to come up with some of your analysis? Is that based on population size of how many people?
It's actually not a sample. It was the population of every city 10,000 and above in the United States, city, town, village, any incorporated municipality in the United States with populations of 10,000 and above. It took me almost 3 years to even collect the data because it's over 3,000 municipalities over a 30-year time period. So 3,000 times 30 was the number of pieces of data that we we analyzed.
And what about adaptability? What about does the model show flexibility? A lot of flexibility with this model?
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question? I'm not sure what you're asking.
The question is about flexibility. For example, if we went to this particular form of government and we had a mayor in place, or any mayor that's in place, based the city council like we was talking about this morning, which wasn't part of the conversation. So if we went to this form of government using this particular model, then the city manager would have to be put in place. That would be a council manager type of city manager, correct?
If the council appointed a manager, council and mayor together appointed a manager, and the manager was given authority over the administrative functions of the government, that would be a council manager form of government.
Okay, thank you very much, and go Heels.
Thank you, Mr. France. Are there any other questions? We really very much appreciate this. I hope this presentation is able to make it to the website quickly because I think there are an awful lot of people in Richmond County that would love to listen to this.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. We really appreciate you taking the time to visit with us and your expertise and the time you've taken to study this, because for those of us in the business, we know what an unbelievably challenging task that was. So thank you and well done on your research. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson.
Perfect. Thank you. Good. Dr. Nelson is really terrific colleague, but also very well respected across the country. And her expertise is so unique. We wanted to bring it and share it with you. So we're glad we were able to do that. We do have some slides that I believe that IT's helping us get those up on the screen. Perfect. There we go. So again, as you all know, we had the surveys that went out. Over 1,300 responses, I believe, is where we ended up. We have sent to the chair a copy of these slides, as well as the comments that were received. We sent those over this morning, and so those will be distributed to the members of the committee, as well as go up on the website. So just real quickly is, one of the keys that we had was that we had a filtering question at the very beginning so that we focused on folks who actually lived here. We had about 130 people who didn't live here who started the survey, but they weren't allowed to proceed on. And so we had the 1,400 folks that were in the survey. And then depending on the question, the number of responses varies. We got representation from all across the city. We had a small minority that said they didn't want to say which district they lived in. And then we had some folks who said they didn't know, although we did have a link to help them find their district if they had wanted to follow that. Considering the size of commissioners, the majority of folks said that they thought that that the current size is about the right size. But there were, again, small minorities, 16% that thought they needed more commissioners, and about 29% that thought there were too many commissioners. In terms of should the commissioners be elected by the district or by the entire county, so 18% said they ought to be elected countywide, 45% by the district that they represent, and then 36% by the district and or super district that they represent. Those two kind of are crossovers, saying essentially the same thing, except the addition of super districts. The charter should be reviewed. There is essentially, everybody wants to see it reviewed. The question is, how frequently? A very small portion, 6%, said only when problems arise. The rest of folks were trying to decide which frequency, and there were about 60%, 57.3%, that said they ought to do it every 5 years. And then there were 35%, almost 36%, that said between 7 and 10 years. In terms of the needing a mayor, the strong majority sense was that there is an important role for a mayor to play in Augusta Richmond, with 75.6% saying that you need a mayor to be effective. In terms of administrator versus manager, the responses were quite similar. 40% saying that an administrator, while 7% said a manager. Although I will note that from the comments, the individual comments that were written, there was often substantial confusion between a manager and administrator. And the common theme that we heard from those comments was the need for professionalism in the role of the manager or administrator. And you heard Dr. Nelson's comments as well. And then in terms of who should have the authority to hire an administrator or a manager, the strongest group was the commission, with a smaller portion saying the mayor alone should do that, and then a smaller portion saying they weren't sure. Who should have the power to hire and fire department heads? This is one where the current practice is the one that most people were most familiar with, and that's what they said they wanted to stick with. Although, again, when you started reading the comments, those that had an opinion did suggest that the manager should have that ability to hire and fire. In terms of the mayor having a veto power, the largest share was yes in limited situations. Nearly 18% wanted the mayor to have unlimited veto. And that, again, it will be one of those conversations that you all will spend some time with. In terms of theme, so those were the kind of core questions that you all asked. We then asked people to provide comments. And there were really kind of three kind of major themes that we heard. The one that, well, three major themes that dealt with charter issues. And one of those charter issues is also non-charter issues. And so the broad theme that we heard consistently across was a dissatisfaction with the performance of the Augusta-Richmond County. Some of that was framed in terms of needing more professionalism. Some of that was around discontent with service delivery and a variety of other kind of general levels of dissatisfaction, some of which also dealt with things that are not necessarily related to the charter, such as the location of shopping and just the general patterns of responsiveness of the city. The other two that we heard more frequently were around the role of the mayor and the preference for professional leadership. And again, on the mayor, the comments were divided. In general, there was a consistent sense that there is a role for the mayor to play, but whether the mayor should have kind of really significant powers or have limited powers, there was not a clear pattern of what the actual role for the mayor should be, other than the mayor needs to be involved. The most articulate of those was a very clear articulation of the need for the mayor to take leadership roles, but not necessarily articulating the specific powers and authorities that the mayor should have. And then the last theme that we saw on charter-related issues was the desire for professional leadership, and we saw that both in terms of people saying a very clear call in the comments, a very clear call for a manager-led form of government, and then kind of a secondary call for simply professionalism, whether it be a manager or an administrator. So those were kind of the broad themes, as well as the individual responses that we saw to the surveys that came in.
First question is from Ms. Backus.
Thank you so much for that. I just had probably a little bit of a random question. The questions towards the end, it said skipped 499. So my confusion is when Ms. Wilhelmi and I were putting in manually the paper surveys, it would not allow you to submit that survey unless you had answered every single question. So and I'm guessing out of that 499, some of those are going to be the people that answered, no, I don't live in Richmond County. But where did those other couple hundred come from if they couldn't complete the survey without answering all the questions?
The answer is I don't know the answer to that. I do have a call into the folks in IT to try and understand some of that a little more. It does appear that Ms. Robinson has some insights.
Ms. Robinson.
I'm familiar with SurveyMonkey. How it works is even if you don't finish it, it still counts it as it doesn't necessarily count as a submission, but it does still count as a survey being taken. So that's why it says skipped for those couple hundred folks, because they may have stopped the survey. So SurveyMonkey will still count it as an attempt. And that's part of their reporting.
So some of that, it simply may have been survey fatigue as well as they got in. So some of them were the folks that got stopped at the very first question because they didn't live in Richmond County. And then some of them may have gotten 3, 4, 5 questions in and said, this is more than I wanted to deal with.
Okay, Ms. Backus.
So just to clarify, 1/3 of the surveys, either they didn't live in Richmond County, that was 100 and some, right?
Yes.
And then the rest of them started the survey and never finished?
That appears to be the case, yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Robinson, question for you. Did you receive the raw data that you requested or no? Not yet. Is it possible to forward raw data to?
So I actually have a request for that same raw data into IT.
I see. Okay.
And so we're working on that with them.
Can we add that to Ms. Robinson, District 1, and also to Carl Vinson?
I requested it as well.
Ms. Backus, all right. How about when you get it, just send it to me and I'll forward it to everybody, and then
Gladly.
everybody will have it. How about that?
Gladly.
Okay. All right, Mr. Fouché?
Thank you, Ms. Wilhelmi. I appreciate it. My question is for the entire group. The number of surveys that we had is so statistically low. I wonder if we should place any credibility on this whatsoever.
So if I can respond, I have two responses. One, this was really kind of a general information gathering survey without any statistical power behind it in order to be able to speak to the clear preferences of the county. So it really was kind of an information gathering to just test the waters to some extent. The other is, in terms of the number, the number is actually reasonably high. Now, if it were a statistically valid sample, and we had over 1,000 responses, we would have a probability of accurately depicting well over 95%, with 95% confidence that we were telling an accurate picture. Essentially, once you get above about 400, you're able to speak with 95% confidence that you're actually accurately predicting.
Good.
But because this was a sample of convenience where people chose to be in it, we don't have that same statistical power.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we've got Coach Bryant.
Well, my question is,
We will, by common acclamation, receive this as information. Does anybody object? All right, thank you very much. All right, now we want to come back to the boundary map for Section 1 of the Charter, and I would like to call upon Attorney Plunkett to walk us through this. This has to do with Section 1 of the Charter. It's a very turnkey thing, but he's better equipped to explain this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did a little bit of looking at some other consolidated governments, and generally, as opposed to a municipality may have more traditional boundaries, it seems that the ones that are consolidated reference just the boundaries as of a certain date, and then whether or not those boundaries are in the future modified by constitutional powers. So what I would do, rather than doing a map, because then you get into, I think maps are just a little difficult to attach, and meets and bounds boundaries for Richmond County be very difficult to think. And so based on what Clark County and to some extent the Macon Bibb have, I think you could simply go with something along the consolidated government shall embrace the total area included within the existing territorial limits of Richmond County as such limits are fixed and established on the effective date. You could either do this charter or as the Consolidation Act. I don't think the boundaries of Richmond County have changed in the last 30 years. So I think referring it back to the Consolidation Act seems appropriate. However, such limits may be altered and changed from time to time as provided by the Constitution and laws of the state of Georgia pertaining to counties. So in other words, theoretically, the boundaries of Richmond County could be changed, but it is highly unlikely. And I think you could just simply go with what the boundaries were, either as of this date or the Consolidation Act. But I think the retroactive to that date seems probably more appropriate. But I don't think we need to get out congressional boundaries, and we don't need to do things of that nature. The boundaries are, I think Richmond County hasn't changed since probably Columbia County was carved out of Richmond County, so it's pretty far out there. So my suggestion would make it very generic, similar to the other consolidated governments.
Thank you, Attorney Plunkett. Mr. France.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Plunkett, I have a question where reference consolidation. How does Burke County and Hetzibah play into this scenario?
Well, I think you're referring to Blythe, not Burke County.
Blythe,
So
yes,
Blythe.
that's correct.
So basically, those are kind of a fun thing. And Clark County also has a separate municipality. Winterville is in Athens Clark. But basically, you've got the boundaries of Augusta, Georgia, which is really historically Augusta, used to be called Augusta Richmond County. Prior to that, it was Richmond County, so in consolidation language, but we've changed that name to Augusta, Georgia. All right, so what was Richmond County consolidated with Augusta, they had a combined name of Augusta Richmond County, and then later there was a change to just Augusta, Georgia. Ordinances that are applicable to the county-wide, think pre-consolidation, there are certain types of ordinances that apply to the entire county, and those still apply. As to municipal services, there's a thing called a service delivery strategy. And so that kind of addresses when a municipality will do their own services Streetlights is one of those sometimes. Blythe has a SDS with us that says they'll do their own streetlights. So we kind of carve that out. And then the other part of it is there are certain things that are retained by municipalities. So in other words, the certain types of services that Augusta does not, Augusta as everything but Hepzibah and Blythe, there are certain things that we cannot, I'm trying to think of the right word, invade is not the right word, but go within the jurisdictional boundaries. In other words, they are sovereign's the wrong word, but they are municipal corporations. And so they have their boundaries, and certain things cannot be done within their boundaries without their permission. Think of the SDS. So this is, I'm sorry, I'm rambling so much, and I hope you're following it, but basically is Augusta, Georgia is the perimeter of Richmond County. Everything that the commission adopts applies unless it is something that is reserved by a municipality of Blythe or Hepzibah. Does that help, maybe?
Yes, that helps
Sorry.
a lot. I guess the reason I asked that, I live in Richmond County, but I have a Hepzibah mailing address.
Yes, sir.
So that variance there between the two, I live in Richmond County, but I have a Hepzibah mailing address.
Well, you could be in Richmond County and actually have a Hepzibah address. You could have an Augusta address. Some people actually live in Richmond County, have a Martinez address, even though Martinez is considered Columbia County. And then a few people get Keysville's addresses. So, so there's, think of it as one is a governing issue and one is a postal issue. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Robinson.
This is also a question for Attorney Plunkett. So in the charter, it talks about, the current charter, it talks about, and I can't remember the exact language or the section, but it talks about where at the point of consolidation that there can be no other municipalities created, to my knowledge. That's the language as I read it. But I know there has been talk of Somerville becoming its own municipality. In the charter, is that correct language? And could there be a possibility of additional municipalities? And how should that be, if that is the case, how should that be addressed in the charter?
Having eyes in the back of my head, I'm thinking that Ms. Brill and Rex are avoiding me greatly. My thought is this, is that the legislature can do pretty much what they would want. So if there was a motion or there was an act by the government to overrule and say that we will not have any more municipalities in Richmond County, and they wanted to allow Somerville to do so, I think they could. But that would be my gut reaction, is that we would not be creating additional municipalities, but there would have to be some state law that would trump our charter, I think is what would be the situation. But Lori may have a different view, and I'll be more than happy to be corrected.
I do not have it in front of me, but I do know in fact that there's state law that says, I was trying to see if it was in the Constitution or in the statutes, that if you are going to have a municipality within the confines of this consolidated government, at the time of consolidation, you have to basically speak up, and that's the only time you can do it. However, in the legislator's infinite wisdom, I don't know if they would ever change that. And because I can't remember if it's in the Constitution or the statutes, I don't know if it'd have to be a constitutional amendment, which is obviously a lot more difficult. I would, and I say in their infinite wisdom because they can try to do anything, and unless somebody challenges them, it's law. But the statute, and I'll have to get back to you on this, whichever one it is, it does state once it's done, there shouldn't be any more municipalities in there. And there's a reason for that. I mean, so yeah, that is what you are correct.
So Ms. Brill is more eloquent and more educated on the issue, but I think we both
I don't know about eloquent at all.
But we come to the same, but we both come to the same conclusion that we can't do it unless the state says you could do it.
And I would be very surprised if Somerville could be successful with that without something, again, maybe the legislator would, I've never seen it done. Legislature let them do it, or the law was changed. So I'm not sure what's going on. And it's completely within Augusta, Richmond County, within, okay. All right. But I can get that information to you if you would like.
If I may, I think, and Ms. Brill will probably know this, but I think even if you want to create a new city, think the city of Buckhead, there were certainly Sandy Springs and things like that. I believe it still takes state approval to even have the referendum to do that. So there are many, many steps before, if there was ever to be an attempt to try to have a city of Somerville, there'd be a lot of steps to do. I think also, so that would be kind of consistent with that.
And he is correct, because the charter has to be drafted, and then it goes to the legislature for approval, and then it always goes to the citizens for vote for these new municipal corporations. So yes, he's very much correct. Lots of steps, lots of hoops.
Thank you. So can we have a motion to accept? Mr. Coleman, is there a second? Ms. Robinson, seconded. Any other comments we'd like to cover? Mr. Plunkett?
I think the question is, do you prefer the language, and maybe Lori has an opinion whether or not it should be as the Consolidation Act was adopted or as of this document. Do y'all have a suggestion or preference?
I can't remember if the boundaries were in the Consolidation Act, or was it in the charter?
It was in the charter, block by block by block.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's where I said you don't want to do it that way.
Right.
And your question is?
Whether or not it would be appropriate to say that the boundaries were as of the date of the Consolidation Act or the date of the adoption of this charter.
The date of the Consolidation Act, were those boundaries, because the boundaries are in the charter, it seems like.
And they're consistent with
Okay.
what we have today.
Okay, so you're saying the Consolidation Act, but the Consolidation Act was passed before the charter, correct?
Yes.
So the boundaries weren't in place specifically at the time of the Consolidation Act?
I think that, I tell you, I think we're getting into a lawyer semantics, which we love. We love making sausage, and watching the seeds grow is always part of our life. If we may, what I would think, if you could do a motion to adopt essentially the language I just read, and then we can, we'll debate offline whether or not it should be the date of the Consolidation Act or this charter adoption, and maybe y'all could ratify that next week, if that would be next meeting. But that way we could, or alternatively, you could delay it till next meeting, and we'll come up with the best thing. But
I apologize for the debate, but it could cause certain things to go in place that maybe aren't intended. So it's good to pin that down.
Would this body prefer to delay that until everything is clear and we've got it all documented? All right, let us do that. Mr. Coleman, will you accept that? All right, very good. Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Thank both of our attorneys for being thorough. We need you to be. Can I turn the attention of this body to minutes? Ms. Bonner, it says at the top, it says agenda, public notice, news media, August 5th. The first line says 2025 Augusta Charter Review Committee minutes for the meeting of August 7th. If you haven't read those, if you'll take a moment to go ahead and check to see if we are accurate. Okay, Ms. Robinson?
A motion that we accept the minutes from the last meeting as given.
Okay, second?
Second.
Who's second now here? Mr. Wimberly. Okay, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Any additional discussion? If not, please vote. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Wimberly, if you're prepared now to return to the topic you were trying to make earlier, please.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, again, I'm going to call on the young lady from the League of Women Voters. Would she please come to the podium? Having just received your notes once I came in, I need further understanding. And so would you please continue with you stopped at, I believe, auditing?
Let's see. What I was talking about is why the form of government subcommittee was so critical, because they need to clarify the priorities must be clarified before the finance committee can do its job. In other words, we need to clearly define the form of government. We need to know the division of powers and authority, and we need to clarify the relationship between the mayor, the commission, and whether that's a chief administrator or a chief manager. We need to know that, whether it's administrative or whatever, in order for the finance committee to be able to even start looking at budgeting and that type of thing. And that's where I was going with that. And that's why the two documents that I handed out today sort of do phase one of the phase and sequences that I suggested that needed to help prioritize. Just like what I said, is we're all over the place, bringing in things that don't need to be discussed, bringing in things that have no bearing, they're ordinances. And so what the league tried to do was to look at what are the steps that need to be done in order to get this, so that you don't move ahead and discuss something that you haven't set the foundation for yet. And that's what we're saying with the finance committee is, until the form of government says the city of Augusta will have a mayor, council, city manager form of government, or whatever they decide to say, we can't go. You can't do anything. You can't decide authorities. You can't decide veto power. You can't decide any of that stuff till you know what form of government that y'all been talking about for 4 months, talking around for 4 months. And now you've got good ideas. Dr. Nelson gave you suggestions. The people, the survey gave you suggestions. The town halls have told you they don't want a strong mayor. They want balance of power. And Dr. Nelson said the best balance of power was the city manager form.
So having said that, then the remaining of your notes fall in line with, you think, within her briefing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay then, thank you.
Yeah, balance of power, transparency, and accountability. Those are the big things.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. I'm sorry. Ms. Backus?
I just wanted, under new business, Ms. Wilhelmi and I had discussed it, and I just wanted to put it to Mr. Plunkett for clarity. So with town hall meetings, we haven't had a lot of our members show up to the ones that were not hosted directly by our Charter Review Committee. But at the West Augusta Alliance one last week, there were 5 of us. So can you clarify how many of us does open meetings apply to that when we're attending somebody else's meeting? Like, where are the boundaries? Because we want to make sure we're doing things correctly, and somebody had brought up a concern at the town hall meeting on Monday. So I just want to make sure, if it's somebody else's event that we're attending, do we need to put out an open meetings notice? Because we don't ever know how many members are actually going to attend. Like, I'm hosting one in District 2 next Thursday. I would love to see most of our committee members there, but until the moment of, you don't know how many people are going to be there. So do we need to put out an open meetings announcement for every single, like, where's the, I don't know where the boundaries are, because we just want to make sure we're doing things correctly.
I appreciate the concern. Basically, what you're looking at in open meetings is, will there be business conducted by the body? Okay, so for instance, not going, well, I was going to say something negative. Let's say it was a positive something where there something was being named and all of y'all showed up. That's not an open meetings, even though that you're all there. Okay, but if you were at a town hall that was not sponsored by this group or announced by this, and we have and this body is 7 for open records, so I'd be concerned about 6 being there, or a majority of your subcommittee. So keep in mind, it's not just the body, it's also, but let's just say that I think your subcommittees are 5. So 3 of you are there, and y'all got off to the corner and started going, that's a great idea. We should talk about that, or you know what, why don't we just do that? We heard from 2 or 3 people in the audience, they have a great idea, that's what we're going to do. Well, you just violated open meetings because the public wasn't invited to do that when you're taking that action, okay? So the fact that you're there as a group, it doesn't mean that you're going to violate it because you're there. It's just that you go down a slippery slope of conversation, okay? So if you were going to, it seems that y'all have some level of knowledge of what someone's going to be there, someone's not going to be there. It's certainly,
No.
it's not hard to say that.
No, we don't, actually.
No, I mean, but what I'm saying is, but sometimes somebody's going to be there. I've been invited, and you always give the invitation to everyone else. It's certainly nothing wrong with having a public notice for doing that, but it's just, think about the spirit of what it's talking about, is that people need to know that you're talking about it as to make a decision, okay? If you're there to receive information, similar to the surveys, but there was oral, you're not taking any action. But when you all start talking and saying, and we start kind of collectively, that's what we want to do, that's when you're starting to bend or break those rules. Does that make sense?
It does. So at some of the town halls, people have asked us our opinions. And so, for instance, at Monday's town hall, it was me, Ms. Wilhelmi, and Mr. Wimberly. So if they asked our opinions and then we end up in a conversation about that, and I know it was only 3 people, but had it been 6 or 7, would that have been a violation then? Because we're conversating about the things we're going to be discussing.
Okay, so let me be a little lawyerly in that answer, so I won't give you a straight answer, okay? When you go to attend a town hall, first off, we have said that the chair speaks for the body, okay? So when you're at a town hall, you're receiving information, okay? So it is better to deflect giving your opinion because sometimes you are directing a conversation, okay? Just as a big picture. And it's a little bit like, even though it's not coming up in November, it's a little bit like a sales tax referendum. A commission can educate, but they cannot advocate, all right? And so for the SPLOST issue, they can tell you what's in it, they can tell you why it might be good for the community, they can tell you why it's bad for the community, but when they tell you to vote, they're supposed to tell you to vote. They're not to tell you to vote yes or not tell you to vote no. That's a misappropriation of government resources, dollars, and things like that. So I would advocate for you to do the same, is a little less of what is your opinion. I think you can coach it or couch it in, we're considering these things. You see what I'm saying? Because sometimes an opinion in this body for all of the language that has gotten in here, but there's an earnestness of all of y'all of what you're trying to do. But when you give your opinion, and I'm not, and hopefully you know I'm not referring to, Angela Beckus, I'm just saying you being a board member. When you say, this is my opinion, or this is what I think, you're kind of saying that I have predetermined what I'm going to vote, okay? And you might be influenced by those meetings and things like that. So you, by couching it that this is what we're considering, this is what we're thinking about, what do you think? You're actually receiving more information. And to that lawyer thing, I would deflect as much as I can, giving your opinion at this juncture, because your opinion should show up when you vote to approve or disapprove a motion in front of y'all. But it's not, but to stop this whole long conversation because nobody wants to hear Jim talk. You could give your opinion, it's just better not to.
So the concern is, and I don't give it unless I am asked, but anything that I say, because I don't have the authority to speak on behalf of this committee, is going to be my opinion. So then I would not be able to speak at all. Like, I can't tell people like, okay, this is, you see what I'm saying? So in that case, I just need to know, do we need to, I don't want to harass the clerk with every single town hall meeting that we're having. I just want to make sure that we're doing it on the up and up and following all of the rules, because it didn't even occur to me about the subcommittee quorum and all that kind of stuff.
Again, it's whether or not you're taking action is the violation. And I will be more than happy to, through the chair to the clerk, to get everyone there's a couple of little good summaries on open meetings. There's also some books on it. But I think this is that you always want to qualify, this is my opinion. Again, I think the purpose of why you're there is to listen, not to lecture.
Absolutely.
Okay? And more importantly about that is that be aware of who is there. And I would encourage, there's one thing to be invited to come and chat or someone to hear what's going on, okay? But I would try to encourage people to go to your more official public hearings, because two of y'all may be at one, but it's not required, but all of y'all show up for these hearings, and that's when people could hear. So I would encourage more of that type of dialogue to be in front of the larger body. And I recognize some people don't want to go and they don't know strangers and stuff, but there's always exceptions. But I would try to, just be wary of that. And I'll send this information to y'all, it'll probably go out tomorrow, and that way you can have a little better feel for this open records and the issues. But do keep in mind, committees are that, but it's also whether or not you're taking action, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Plunkett. Mr. Pearson.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Plunkett, should we use the term or the phrase charter review committees when we're having unsanctioned meetings in the community? Should it be a heading at all? Because the thing is if it's not a sanctioned meeting, personally, I won't be going unless it's through Marcy and she has approved it. The thing is, if you got 5 members showing up in one side of town and 1 or 2 showing up at another side of town, I don't like the perception that one may be perceived as having less value. So maybe that's just something that's within my mind, but I just don't like the perception of it all when we're having these unsanctioned meetings around town.
Mr. Pearson, if I may, I think that's within the prerogative of each of the members, so long as they are not trying to say what the committee is doing or what the committee's posture is. I can appreciate your saying that I don't want to go out there because I look like I am favoring one part of the community or another, and I'm giving more weight to that. I think to someone, I used to do, running for office. I went to some things like that, and, and I would be, a candidate. I think that if somebody was having a neighborhood group and they said, and maybe it's a bunco group or it's Mahjong or whatever it is, people are going to ask you what's going on. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I don't think it always has to be a quasi-neighborhood, quasi-public thing. But yes, y'all are representatives of this body, and people are going to ask, but if you're on an agenda and it says, Rod Pearson, Charter Review Committee member, that would be that. It's just when it's like he's coming to tell it, but it's like that's one thing. But with but when they say he's going to come tell us about what's going on, that's when we're kind of getting information to taking Marcy's seat. Does that make sense? Or I should say, Ms. Willingham.
It does.
We're not supposed to do first names. But you know what I'm saying? So when you're coming to represent the Charter Review Committee at a neighborhood thing, you're presenting. When you go there as a person and they're like, could you tell me a little bit about what's happening? I think that's okay, but you're really just trying to get information. So it's y'all have, for a body that's only been around for 4 months, y'all have some of the grayest areas I have been involved with. But just kind of be intelligent, use your discretion.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Mr. France?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ma'am, my question, is it appropriate time to bring a motion to the floor, ma'am?
Yes, but let's go through comments first, if we could. I think Ms. Backus wanted to. So, Ms. Backus.
Just to follow up and clarify, Ms. Wilhelmy has actually encouraged us to host our own town hall meetings within our districts so that we can hear from the people that we are here representing. So again, I do understand the concern. I just wanted to reiterate that has been encouraged, that we even host our own. And I don't know that you've necessarily encouraged us to attend others, but you've attended them as well.
That came up the other night too. So, for instance, I'm going to call Dan in about 2 seconds to talk about a prayer meeting that's happening on Tuesday with an open invitation to this body to come, whoever wants to come. And so I think your question is timely, and I think Mr. Plunkett's done a good job explaining it. He'll get us some additional information, and it should be easy. I plan on attending Angela's next Thursday night. So make sure everybody understands it's an open invitation. There is no requirement to, but if you're able to come, it's always useful. Thank you for the question. Okay, returning to Mr. France, you had a question about.
My question was bringing a motion to the floor. Is it appropriate time to do so? Sure. Well, just a preference is just a second. Based on the information we received this morning from our great associate Carl Vinson and North Carolina, Miss Nelson from the great state of North Carolina, I make a motion that we, as a committee, a review committee, task Carl Vinson Associates to do the research on what a city-managed government, council-managed government for the city of Augusta-Richmond County would look like, pros and cons, and come back and give us their best effort on what that would look like.
Did that already. Not in this way, though. Where's me? It's not in the minutes, though.
And
so is there a second for that?
I'd like to have some conversation about that, Madam Chair. I was prepared to make a very, very similar motion. I would like to make a motion that we request the Carl Vinson Institute to draft language adopting a professional council manager form of government with ICMA accountability.
All right, is there a second? So that's a substitute motion. We have two motions on the floor, and I have to have a second from Mr. Francis. Is there a second for Mr. Francis? Everybody understand what we're doing here, folks? You made the motion. we need a second for Mr. Francis' motion, and in the absence of that, then it reverts to Mr. Foucher's, who's also needs it. It dies, all right, so, all right. Mr. Foucher has a motion on the floor. Is there a second for Mr. Foucher's?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion. I move that we request the Carl Vinson Institute to draft language adopting a professional council manager form of government with ICMA accountability.
Second.
Okay, so Mr. Foucher made the motion. Ms. Robinson seconded. Discussion. Let's go to Ms. Sheffield. Did you want to add to that, Ms. Robinson?
We had similar work that Mr. France is asking for. We had that similar done in May, and there was a presentation given for that that discussed that. So that's why I think there's pushback on that request, because it was actually done. Sorry, before you got here, but I'd be more than happy to sit down with you and discuss it if you had questions.
All right, I'm trying to keep this straight. Ms. Backus.
I have a question about this, and I'm a little confused. Why would we be going to ask them to draft language for something that we haven't agreed that that's what we want to move forward with? Should we not first begin with, hey, is this the path that we want to go down, before you're asking them to draft language? It's like drafting a legal document that says, yes, this is what we're doing, but we haven't decided that that's what we're doing. So I guess that's my confusion.
This is the new charter language that I would like to see.
But we haven't, as a group, agreed that that's what we want to do yet. So I feel like it's premature to move forward with drafting charter language for something that we haven't agreed on yet. Does that make sense? I'm not opposed to that, like actually discussing and determining what form of government we want to move forward with, but I think you have to determine that form before you draft the charter language to go with it.
Okay, Mr. Lewis.
Yeah, I agree with Ms. Backus. Before we ever vote on that, we need to discuss as a committee and find out what the path we're going to take before we do it. They're here for information and to give us facts. We make our decisions.
Can we be determined by that, by the calling a vote?
Okay, Mr. Coleman?
I understand what the motion is. I just want to make sure that the mayor does not lose his vote on this type of structure.
That's not included in the motion.
He's not part of this motion, which is, and Mr. Plunkett, I believe you were next.
I just want to reference to what Ms. Backus is saying is that while it could be redundant or unnecessary work, oftentimes it may be beneficial to see what the language would look like. And then when you start thinking about it, you may go, that's not anywhere what I thought that would be. So sometimes, it's, you could also be like, almost like make a motion to have a strong mayor language so y'all could actually see it. I know that y'all have seen examples from other communities, but it may be that that's some of the things that y'all need to start tailoring yourselves to. I don't disagree with you that having a path forward and drawing things accordingly to that is one way to proceed, but there's certainly nothing inappropriate to have language for you to discuss if that helps. So I'm just saying that it's not out of, I didn't want to say that his motion is not out of order to have that language done, and it could have some benefits, but you could also have other language drafted if you wanted to be able to have something to lightly debate.
Madam Chair, can I just respond real quick, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
So my concern would be there's too many other variables that haven't been discussed and decided upon for them to be effectively draw up a draft language. For instance, if we go with the city manager, will that person be hired and fired by the mayor? Who will they report to? All of that kind of stuff. So I think we're throwing an impossible task at Carl Vinson, and anything that they put in there could be construed as guiding us in one direction or the other because we have not come to those conclusions yet.
That's not part of the motion.
So there are other pieces. This is very preliminary. It's to begin the research and come back to us with options, roles, responsibilities, who reports to whom. All those things have yet to be decided, but step one is to be heading that way. Mr. Wimberly.
Words matter. Madam Chairman, you once said that when I speak, you can't hear me. Can you hear me now? Okay, good. Words matter. And the gentleman from District 10 said that he wants this information. He didn't say the body wants this information. I've heard the pros and cons of it, but I don't see how it fit into what we need now.
Sorry, can you repeat that one more time? I want to understand more what the motion covered.
I don't see how the motion fit into what we need now as a body.
Dr. Facer, might I call you to explain how this works in terms of drafting language and research?
Sure. So one of as Attorney Plunkett mentioned, one way to proceed is to have actual language for you to respond to on the page. So what I have heard from the motion is a request to actually draft some language that you could then respond to, have a dialogue around, and then decide if that's something you wanted to proceed with, or if it's something that you wanted to go a different direction, et cetera.
Okay. Mr. Bryant?
Madam Chair, thank you. I think based on what's been said, and I think this committee has been wrongfully blamed in the community about not getting off the dime and doing something. This is an attempt at getting off that dime and doing something. And I don't see the motion hindering anything. I see the motion as allowing us to evaluate exactly where we're thinking about going. And based on that, I would like to call for the question.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Mr. Lewis and Mr. Scott, do you object to that?
If you're going to have them to look at that, I'd like for them to look also the second half of that as well.
Okay.
If you're going to do city manager, I'd like to see manager city, both forms.
Okay. Let's talk about that directly at the end of the meeting then if we can, because I'm certain they'll be delighted to do so. Mr. Scott, listen to me, Mr. Wimberly. We've got a question, call for the question. All right. We're voting.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Wimberly voting no. Mr. Lewis voting no. And Ms. Backus voting no. Mr. Pearson voted yes. Mr. Powell's out. Ms. Wilhelmy votes yes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Dan, if I could call you to the podium to please share what is happening on Tuesday morning, to tell everybody where it is and why we're congregating, please.
My name's Dan Funch. I live at 2301 Allen Avenue in District 5. Madam Chair just asked me to share this, so I'm not necessarily pushing this as a good idea, although I do think it's a good idea. But for the last 20 years, a group of people, this was started by Mayor Copenhaver when he was mayor, have been meeting monthly to pray for the city, to offer prayer for all aspects of our city, the Augusta Community Prayer Breakfast. It's been going on 20 years, with the exception of 1 month that COVID intervened. So we're gathering again. This is ecumenical. It's across all denominations. It is probably the most diverse group of people that gathers in Augusta. You know, all sorts of different people come to pray for our community. And it's Tuesday morning. You all are invited. Anybody who lives in Augusta, even if you mark the part on the chair that says you don't live in Augusta, you could still come. Tuesday morning, August 26th, 8 a.m. So we gather from 8 to 9 for prayer, and then there's breakfast at 9. And this month, it always rotates to a different place. This month's at Destiny Worship Center, which is on Peach Orchard Road, at the intersection of Peach Orchard Road and Tubman Home Road. Destiny Worship Center, and all are welcome for praying for our city. I think we all love our city, and we all ask. I know the commission gets what do they call it, a chaplain for the day to pray for the city. So you all can be chaplain for the day if you want to come and pray for our city. Thanks.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate you thinking of us.
I think you're going to distribute maybe in writing what I just said, right?
Yes, I will follow up and send that out to the group. Thank you, hon, very much. A little bit of housekeeping, folks. We've had a rash of commentary coming direct to our wonderful Madam Clerk. And even though that is in our policies and procedures that way, at the last meeting, we requested that any communication that is headed Mrs. Bonner's way, please be funneled through the chairman. So if we can't do that voluntarily, we're going to have to go to the trouble of amending policies and procedures. But I would just ask for her benefit, because she is deluged with a lot of requests. If you would kindly just funnel them, that where she'll see one name and she knows she's got to read it, kind of thing. It's just a request. Ms. Robinson.
I just wanted to remind you about the meeting for former commissioners.
Yes, very, thank you. I'm so grateful for that. Thank you. All right, of this body, as you know, when Mr. Todd raised several months ago about, are you going to invite the commissioners? And so at the time we thought no, and then the longer it went on, we thought, well, kind of makes sense. Ms. Bonner has identified that we could hold this meeting in this room on September 11th, and the question is, what time of day? And we've got, it's a kind of a short list because we've lost a lot of our commissioners, but it's to receive their feedback to us, let us ask them questions if we have questions that we'd like. So 10 a.m. or like 4 to 6, what's the pleasure? Touché.
Madam Chair, do we have any idea how many former commissioners would attend that meeting?
We don't. Not until you extend the invitation.
Well, I'm certainly in favor of the meeting taking place in September 11th at 10 o'clock would work for me.
All right, very good. And how about Mr. Coleman?
Oh, I would like to remind everybody, usually on September 11th at 10 o'clock, they usually have the 9/11 memorial all across this country, and I don't think 10 o'clock would be an appropriate time for that.
Okay. How about, does 11 work, you think? Moses, no? Okay, well, if we go there, then we have to start shopping for rooms again.
Well, just give us a date.
All right.
I mean, if we get consensus from this group to hold the meeting.
Yes,
then
okay.
we'll come up with the date and a meeting place.
Who, by raise of hands, who thinks this is a worthwhile thing to do? Let's start there. Okay, looks like a majority it is. Is there a day of the week that's better for this body? Because this room is in use on most Tuesdays. So, Ms. Robinson?
With respect to time for us and the community, I vote that we just do it during our regular meeting.
Okay. All right, so maybe September 4th then, huh?
That or the one after.
What's that?
That or the one after.
Okay, very good. All right, how does that sit with everybody else? Okay? All right, is there any other business to come before the body today that I don't know about? All right, motion to adjourn. We will see you all September 4th. Thank you for coming.